about water and urban places. This is Ideanthro. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Ideanthro. And welcome back to Front of Mind, the series where we grab ourselves a guest from our broader water-sensitive urban design industry and sit down with them for a chat about something that's interesting them, fascinating them, puzzling them, something that is on the front of their mind. Our guest today is Leon Rowlands. Now, Leon has experience in both local government and the private sector, and these days is the director of his own little niche consulting firm, Switchback Consulting, who do various stormwater, water-sensitive urban design and ESC work, which is the topic for today. I reached out to you, Leon, and I was like, look, making the series, is there anything particular that's on the front of your mind? And you came back with an ESC topic. Do you want to give people an intro? What is on the front of your mind in that space?
Yeah, thanks, Jack. The thing that's been front of mind for me has been the recent changes to the state planning policy, which came into effect at the middle of last year.
Okay.
And those were brought in with some new performance criteria around erosion and sediment control,
okay,
and in particular sediment basins. As part of my work in the industry over the last 12 months, I've been struck by the real complete lack of uptake of that particular policy.
Okay.
And so yeah, that's been front of mind for me, is the reasons why that's the case, and just really hoping to get out and explain to industry a bit more about why it's an important change and they should be doing it, and even just making them aware of it in the first place.
Okay, well, let's set some context, because I often find it helps if you can picture stuff. Can you explain to people what, if this policy had been picked up and development sites were using it, what would that look like on the ground, and how would that be different to what we would otherwise have done? And as you do that, I'm going to grab the paper here so it's not, and I'll keep it pinned down. Okay, you go. What would this look like on the ground if people were implementing it?
Yeah, so to the casual observer, it wouldn't look a lot different to what should be happening at the moment, or would happen before the policy. But to understand maybe why the policy changed or what the change was, in the past, for a long time, we've had to do sediment basins on large-scale development sites. Those basins have traditionally been batch systems, just big holes in the ground like a farm dam that fills up during an event, then gets chemically treated and pumped out between events. And a lot of us in the industry noticed over the wet seasons in Queensland, and even worse as you go further north in Queensland into the tropics, that the amount of water you can actually capture that way through those batch systems seem to be really low. It seemed like in the wet season these basins are overtopping all the time. And so a couple of years ago there was some analysis done where we actually sat down and looked at that and confirmed what we all thought, that the actual capture efficiency of those basins is very low. So for where we are today on the Sunshine Coast, maybe you can capture 30 to 40% of the annual runoff volume using those older type of basins.
Yep.
And so the change in the state planning policy and the new sort of design approach to sediment basins is, rather than having a batch system, really move into a continuous treatment. So rather than capturing the water and then treating it, actually treating the water as it comes into the basin and flows through. And so that through that kind of approach, you can capture around 80 to 90%, or treat 80 to 90% of the annual runoff volume. So quite a big step change in performance compared to where we were previously.
Yeah, and of course the problem previously was if you can only capture 30% of the water coming in, even if you can treat that 30% perfectly, you can therefore only treat 30% of the pollution, because 70%'s busting past. But if you can suddenly treat 90%, because it's, as you've got water coming in, stuff's coming out the bottom out the end, shall we say, out the end, then you can get more water past the treatment component of this basin. Yep,
that's right.
Okay.
Yeah. So really, what you'd see on sites that are implementing the policy is you'd still see sediment basins, but you'd see a couple of extra things being added onto it. So there'd be some a dosing system at the front end, and the basin during an event, you'd see it staying full and just being treated as the water goes through it, rather than being emptied between the events.
Yep,
yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, so if that's what we should be seeing, but you're saying that at the moment you're still seeing a lot of the old type of basin being implemented. What do you think's the cause there? Is it a case of, it's only 12 months, people haven't found out about? What do you think's going on there?
Yeah, I think largely just people are probably not aware of the change to the state planning policy, and there probably hasn't been a lot of guidance around how to implement it either.
Okay.
Healthy Land and Water have got a publication out now though, which gives some really good guidance and some deemed to comply solutions around it as well to make it really accessible, as well as some standard drawings. So
Yep.
there's not really the same excuses now for not doing it, I think. So
Sure.
yeah, I'd encourage people to get out and find that information and start to do it.
Yeah, so spots to go and look for that. State planning policy is one of them. Healthy Land and Water website would be another to go and look at stuff. If people, I don't know if this is a question for you, but so tell me if this isn't, but does this apply to everyone? So say if someone already had a development approval from pre that policy coming into place, because obviously we know that with development can be quite a lag from when an approval happens to when you've got to build a site. Does this apply to someone who has an approval from before 12 months ago?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. There's probably not a straight answer, but I'll give you my opinion on that. The state planning policy only has effect through the conditions of the approval. So if you're a local government and you've got an OpWorks application today, regardless of what planning approval you've got, the OpWorks is subject to the state planning policy. So there should be conditions put on any new operational works to comply with the policy.
Yep.
If you had an operational works that was approved before the state planning policy came into effect, then technically you wouldn't have to comply with it.
Yep.
Because there wouldn't be any conditions that would require it. But having said that, put all the planning legislation to one side, there's still the Environmental Protection Act, which you need to comply with, and that has an underlying responsibility for people to do all things that are reasonable and practicable.
Yep.
And I think it would be hard to argue now that doing the new type of sediment basin, the high efficiency sediment basin, isn't part of what is now best practice. So,
and is that because the cost is actually quite similar?
Yeah.
So I'm not super familiar with this, but what I have heard leads me to believe that even though these systems are substantially more effective, that they may be only a little more expensive, or is it, like what's the cost difference?
Yeah, no, they're cost neutral or even beneficial once you factor in the costs of manually treating, the labour costs of manually treating.
Right. So if someone's got a hole in the ground but they're not actually looking after it the way they should,
that's right.
That's going to be cheaper.
That's
but
right.
if you have a hole in the ground that you're actually using properly versus an automated high efficiency basin, it should be cost neutral to go to the better system.
That's right. Okay. Yeah.
Well, that would make sense then, that from a general environmental duty point of view, that would seem that if the previous type of basin was considered all things reasonable and practical to do, that if this is no more expensive, that it would also fall under the same test, so to speak, of being the thing that's reasonable and practical now.
That's right. Yeah.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is all well and good. Are there any spots? No? Okay. Cool. So we've got the places that people can go to look at them, go to see them apply. Well, yeah, okay. Are there any spots people can go to see them apply? So I suppose that's development sites. It's not like, I wanted to ask that because I'm used to bioretention systems where it's like, yes, go to this street and you can see it. But a development site, you can't really get on and see it. So
yeah, Healthy Land and Water are running a number of training days around the high efficiency basins, and that involves field visits. So that's probably the most accessible way to see them. So they're definitely happening.
There are actually, I should know this, there are actually a few videos on the Healthy Land and Water website as well.
Okay.
I should know this because I made them. Okay, so there's that element of it as well. That's cool. Is there anything else that we want to like get out there and let people know about this side of things?
I think the key thing is just being aware of getting the awareness of the policy out there. There are tools out there now. It was probably a bit lacking when the policy first came out, the amount of support for people, but there's a lot out there now. So really, if you work in local government, you should be checking for it, and if you work in industry, you should be specifying it.
Well, that's actually something before we got onto the Environmental Protection Act and general environmental duty, that I was going to say is, presumably if you've got a recent development approval, one thing that might be worth going and looking at is just having a little bit of a closer look at the ESC conditions to see if they're a little different to what you might be used to, because that would also probably be a hint that local government's trying to get you to do this, but maybe it's not completely explicit. Like it might It might read similarly. It might refer to do it in accordance with this section of this policy, which actually on the ground is quite a substantial change. But it's, you know, the condition might only have changed by the policy it refers to. So that's probably worth a look as well.
It is. I mean, some local governments that I've seen are intending developments to comply with it, but the wording of the conditions can be a bit oblique. So it can be a few words that has fairly significant implications on the ground on what you should be doing. Yeah, so it's definitely worth checking that.
Okay, cool. Anything else?
I think that's the key points. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Well, look, I'm really happy with that. Thank you also for having me up to your neck of the woods on the sunny coast today.
Yeah.
Allowing
Thanks for coming.
To film in this lovely environment and surf before we film this. So cool. Well, Leon, thank you for taking the time to have a chat. I appreciate it. Everyone out there, keep an eye out for these sediment basins, these new high efficiency sediment basins. Have a look into them. Apply them on your jobs. Cool. Have a good one. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Jack.
Cool. Before you go, our best episodes come from your questions. This knowledge base, these discussions that are Ideanthro improve with your contribution. So if there's a topic, an idea, a concept that you would like us to explore, come and ask us. You know where to find us. www.ideanthro.com/contact. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and that place you get your good podcasts from. You know where to find us. We look forward to hearing from you. We'll see you soon.